Cool. So, Craig, super excited to have you here. And I know what you want to do is share a little bit about just kind of bridging the gap between clients, or I should say, between like family and friends from your past life. And then as you move into real estate, bridging that and turning them into clients without it seeming like uncomfortable or odd or weird and all that stuff. And I think you've done a great job with that. Before we get into that, share with me just a little bit about kind of your how long you've been in real estate, what got you into real estate, kind of your past career, because I think all that stuff is interesting and helps lead to kind of where the value comes that you can provide. So tell me a little bit about kind
It
of.
does, and it leads into that whole conversation as well, because I came to this a little later in life. So for the 12 years prior to getting into real estate, I had been a pastor at a church, executive pastor, so I was overseeing the staff and the business and facilities of the church. And so when I started in real estate, which was probably about 8 years ago, I knew I could do the business, but I just, there were some hurdles I needed to get over. One was training, and some of it, quite honestly, was just in here. But it took me a little while to figure that out.
Okay, so you went from pastor, and then how long did you do that for?
All told, about 12 years, vocationally.
Cool. And then you decided you wanted to get into real estate, and you felt like, as I imagine a lot of people do, where you have this world where you're surrounded by so many people on a regular basis that like you and know you and trust you, which are important things to moving into real estate. Did you feel like it was going to be a pretty easy and seamless transition because you kind of had that sphere of people, and now it was just about figuring out how to sell a house?
I did, and I'd been around the block. I'd done things before. I knew that real estate isn't brain surgery, but I'm also not the kind of person that's going to fake it. I really want to know what I'm doing. I'm not going to tell people I know if I don't know. So I needed to find that training. And one of the hurdles that I needed to get over was really just the relationships that I had with people from the church. They were friends, but they were also church members and people who looked at me and looked to me for guidance and for anything but I want to sell you something.
Sure.
And so that was the big gap I realized that held me back a little bit in the very beginning.
Okay, so you move into real estate. What does your first year look like? Are you comfortable approaching people about, I'm a real estate agent now and I'd like to sell your house? What does that first year look like transitioning from pastorhood into real estate agent?
Yeah, I think the first year was a little rocky because where I started, the broker I started with had been our agent, and there was a lot of talk of training and things, and I think this happens a lot, which is why I mention it. The reality was there wasn't any training. It was just go out and find business and call me when you do. And then when I did that, the response I got was, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this. So I quickly realized I knew I could do this business. I needed to find somewhere to get the training.
Sure.
And so, yes, to answer your question, I was comfortable with it, but I didn't realize until I was probably about a year into it or so that I was allowing this block that I talked about, this hurdle from going from these prior relationships to what I was doing now. I was very guarded with those people because I didn't want them to think I was using that relationship to now just benefit myself. And what I've done, I found that in talking to agents on my team, other people who will talk to me who are new agents, I found that it's not just me going from pastor to real estate, but there's a lot of people. Some people struggle with it just because of their friends, and maybe they've never really been in sales before. Other people, maybe it's a different situation where they felt real comfortable with people, but they feel like they're selling them. And so I set out to try and figure out, talking to other people, reading some different things, how can I reconcile this so I can move beyond it? And so that's what we want to talk about today.
Sure. So do you feel like, because I know that a lot of times when you have kind of this where you don't want people to feel like you're making money off them, or that you're taking advantage of them in some way, right? Even though you're doing a service.
That's a good way to put it.
Do you think realtors are fairly paid, overpaid, or underpaid? And I wonder if this has anything to do with kind of that mindset of.
I think so. I think having been in it and done it, I don't think we're overpaid because people don't realize everything that we do. In fact, I've got current clients who I've known for years. Their house is in escrow right now, and more than once they've looked at me and said, do you do this on every transaction?
Right.
Do you have to juggle all of these things? Do you have to, and I talked about the team and everything, but the answer is, yeah, we earn it. So on this side of it, I see that, but I also I also think that people don't necessarily know everything that we do. And so it can appear to people like we're making a lot of money from it.
And potentially even early on, you didn't know all the things that you did, right? And
Very
so
true.
I
That's
think
part
a lot
of
of times people come from, I don't know exactly what you were making as a pastor, but you could sell a home and make easily 2 months salary for selling a home maybe, and in a lot of careers, people can jump from maybe being a teacher into a real estate agent and can make,
a year's salary in a couple of transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
true.
so they start to think of this as like, well, am I being overpaid? And I think if you're not confident that what you're making for your service is the fair market value to that, then sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. I know for you, it ultimately became kind of a mindset thing, right? That you were able to kind of switch a mindset.
Yes.
Was there any specific incident or moment or thing that happened, or was there a mantra, or was there training, or was there what was it that helped you move from that mindset where you really felt like no longer that you were taking advantage of, or the people, your friends were paying your mortgage, but that you were actually helping your friends to accomplish their dreams and their vision?
And I think
what was
it happened over a period of time, but I think it was all of the above. One thing was overcoming, and I think this is really important for a lot of people who maybe haven't had the opportunity to control what they make. They've just been paid for years, they've been on salary, or they're getting paid hourly, and now they have this opportunity before them. And so one of the things you have to overcome is I call it a poverty mentality of expecting to work your tail off and you just get what you get. This is what they're paying. It's hourly, it's salary, whatever it is. And especially if you're in an environment where you're salaried and they're willing to take whatever you give, you work a ton of hours to do the right job and do it well, and then you walk away with the same thing all the time because there is no overtime, there is no bonus, there is no. So the first thing was to overcome that poverty mentality and realize that even though I've been going over and above for years and not being recognized for it monetarily, doesn't diminish the fact that what I've done is actually worth a lot. So you translate that into real estate, and that's one of the mindset things that has to happen. And I truly believe that the battle was here, and it was a little bit here because you care about the relationships, or we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Sure.
But the first thing I had to overcome was realizing that there's great value in what I do. And like you said, at first, before you've walked through everything and realized everything that you've signed up for, you may wonder, man, we're getting paid a lot for this.
Right, it's not just putting people in your car and driving them around to a couple properties and then signing a contract.
And you just snap your fingers and it happens.
There's a lot more that just going through a transaction 6 or 7 months ago, purchasing and selling a home and purchasing a home. I definitely got an appreciation. I've been surrounded by real estate all my life. Never been a real estate agent, but been surrounded just through my businesses and parents and all that stuff. But even I had just a much greater appreciation going through it this time of all the things that are, in a competitive market like this too, where we're up against multiple offers, and then getting to hear agents, some of the problems that agents are having now is,
that's right.
How do I manage, I put a property on the market and now I've got 15 offers in the first 24 hours.
Exactly.
Good problem to have if you're the seller, bad problem to have if you're the agent. You have to now sort through and make sense and heads and tails of all these 15 different offers, present them to your seller in a way that you're providing them the right information with the right guidance and the right, and doing it in the right time, and now have 2 or 3 properties like this at the same time, and so you really start to see there's a ton that goes on. That's there's a lot of masterful work.
And I think part of the reason, you were surrounded by real estate growing up, but you were also surrounded by people who did it well and made it look effortless. And that's what we really strive for as agents, is to get proficient enough at what we do that we're masters of what we do, and we make it look to the outside world like it's just no problem, no matter what happens.
There's a great saying that I always talk about in my teams that I work with, which is you want to be like a duck. You're cool and calm on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath, right?
Exactly.
And so there's a lot of things that are going on underneath that you're doing, but you make it look like it's effortless and easy. And I think you're right. I definitely had that around me all my life.
Exactly.
My parents made it look easy, although they were doing a lot. So
what I realized is this whole mindset is, it started with what I didn't realize was what I call this poverty mentality.
Sure.
Where I just had to come to the realization that this is okay. I'm actually worth this. I'm actually good at what I do, And what I'm making on these, it's very fair because of what I put into it, because of the value that I bring. And I think that's the first key, is realizing and admitting to yourself and being convinced to yourself that you're worth it. That what we do, not everybody's going to need it very often. Some people never need a realtor.
Sure.
Some people need it 2, 3, 4 times in their lifetime. But we've got a great opportunity to serve people, to communicate with people. If you do what I do and do this business really by referral, we've got amazing opportunity to come alongside people and talk with them and communicate with them, give to them. And the reality is, we're not asking them to buy anything. We're asking them just to stay in touch and who do you know who is in need of my services. So number one, it was getting over that hump of that poverty mentality and realizing that what I do is actually worth more than anything that I've been recognized.
You're allowed to get paid well for what you do.
Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that.
So that was the first part of it. What was there something else that kind of, because to me that is, you mentioned kind of your own head. It now allows you to go out and
right.
Collect a check that you're comfortable with. But now we still have to feel like we are doing the best service for our clients, and that we're the best person for them to be hiring to do the job, and that we have the right skill set to be able to do it well. And you have to convince yourself of all that stuff too. I've been doing business coaching for about 2.5 years now, and I can tell you that the first 1 or 2 or 3 clients that I picked up, I was a little bit I was in over my head, right? Like they're paying me similar to what I'm still getting paid today, but I was really new at this, and I was learning a lot of things, and so at some point I think that I became a lot more comfortable with what I'm doing, and I feel like I really have a groove. I assume or imagine there's a similar thing like that in real estate.
There is.
To where not only are you saying, okay, it's okay that I'm allowed to make money, but now I'm actually good enough to be making the money too. Was there a point or a moment that you felt that kick in? Or
I think I started pretty quickly and produced pretty well, even first year that I was, once I got the training and things that I needed. So the other part is, now that I understood here, and I really felt comfortable with the fact that I am worth this, and I do bring this much value in what I do, now it released me to talk to people who I've known for years and know that, number one, I'm not always trying to sell them on something. I'm communicating with them. I'm talking with them. Every call that I make is just an opportunity. And there's people sitting in cubicles all day long, and they're being given assignments, and I need this report and I need that. And they would love to be able to have the freedom that we have just to pick up the phone and call someone we know and have a conversation. And so obviously interjecting real estate, we're catching up with them, but we're asking them for referrals. We're making sure they know what we're doing. We're talking to them about the market. We're sharing information. And I actually got over that hump when I really believed that when I asked somebody for a referral, if they were referring somebody to me or they needed my services, that I was really good at what I did. Now, the caveat, when you're starting out, you don't know everything. I mean, none of us ever know everything. But just like I told one of the new agents on my team, and I told him over and over again, when you go out, you're not going out with your own confidence. You're going out with the confidence of me and this team, because you're not in this alone. So from the very beginning, I want you to talk to everybody like you know what you're doing, like you're not going to be surprised if they want to use you, because you may not have all the answers right away, but you've got the resources of our team behind you, so you can confidently move out. And I think I was missing that in the beginning. I was not able to confidently move out and tell people what I could do for them, and because I couldn't back that up.
Sure.
I didn't have the training and the support that I needed.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I think that is probably a second part of this, right? Which is getting over the poverty mentality, but then also having the right resources around you, close enough to you that this was always something that I talked about in coaching, that I said I may not have every single answer immediately, but I have a network of people who I can get the answer to anything for you, right?
Exactly.
And so I remember when my parents were first starting in business, and I had asked them a long time ago, like, how'd you get people to do business with you at first? And my dad said that when he'd go out and go on listing presentations, he'd always talk about how hey, what I lack in ability, I make up with availability, kind of, right? And that while you may have an agent who's got 15 deals in their pipeline right now, they've been doing it for a long time, but you're one of 15. You're one of one to me, and you're special, and I'm going to make sure that we're able to take care of you. And so I think, again, there is a little bit of that mindset, but surrounding yourself with really people who have the ability to make you great, and understanding that every interaction you don't need to be perfect and have every answer immediately, but you need to be able to have those answers at some capacity.
Exactly.
And if that's the case, then you really can be confident that you're doing a good job.
And that's the benefit of team that we offer.
Of course.
Because there really truly is a synergy that happens, and we share a lot, we communicate a lot, and there really is a collective knowledge. I mean, I know if there's a lease, don't come to me with a lease, because I hate doing leases. But I know I've got an agent on my team who knows it well. And so we really do have the power of that team. So then the next thing that I had to really realize is, we see it a lot in real estate, and it's the agents, it comes down to Donald Miller and Story Brand, which we've talked about. Great book. But it comes down to the communication we see. And a lot of agents, it's look at me, look how great I did it again. There's one agent, literally, the social media posts are, that name, and I did it again. And I've never been one of those people, and I think a lot of realtors who might struggle with getting over this hump are the same. I don't necessarily want to be the center of everybody's attention or assume that anybody wants me to be. I want to be of service. I want to help people, and I want to make a good living doing it, take care of my family, and meet my own goals. So I had to come to the realization, like Donald Miller teaches in Story Brand, that it's not up to me to be the hero of everybody's story. We're the ones who know, let's call it the mountain of real estate. And he uses the example of Edmund Hillary and how he used a Sherpa to summit Everest. And the reality is, as I read about it, in more recent years, the information is coming out where that Sherpa may have actually summited before Hillary. But the Sherpa's job wasn't to take the credit. It was to navigate the mountain, to know the weather patterns, to know which way to go, and it's not always best to go the same way depending on what's happening. Sometimes you abort, sometimes you move ahead, sometimes you wait at the base camp until the storm passes, but the Sherpa knows the mountain. And so our job, and this is the mindset change that I had, is to be the Sherpa for people so that they can be the hero of their own story. And I think when I finally put all those things together, that it changed my mindset so that when I was making any call, talking to anybody that I had a relationship with, whether it be at the church or anywhere else, I knew that I had value. I knew that not everybody needed me right away, but part of the way that I do get business over time is keeping in touch, being a resource. And then ultimately, when people do use you, to know that it's their story. They're the ones that I'm going to help be the hero of their own story, which means I need to listen. I need to find out more about them. I need to know what their victory looks like so that I can help them achieve that and maybe surpass that. But if I superimpose what I think everybody's victory is, I'm going to hit the mark half the time, maybe. So that helped me a lot.
That makes a ton of sense, and yeah, I love that Donald Miller stuff, and really thinking of yourself as the Sherpa and trying to make them the hero of this story, and you're just helping them to guide them. Obviously, once we have the right mindset, right, you get rid of the poverty mindset, you have the right training and resources around you, you understand that you're the Sherpa and they're the hero to this journey, you're set up to be able to succeed. But it also now comes to having the right contacts and being out there and telling them what you do. And how do you navigate this so that it doesn't seem like a mechanical friendship? It seems like a real friendship, right? Because there's a lot of times where it's like, hey, well, I'm on their email list and it's very impersonal, and I know that they sent the same text out to everybody today, or I got a gift that 50 other people got. Like,
that's right.
So it can seem mechanical over like natural. How do you kind of bridge that to make it seem natural?
Great question. There's several ways I think we do that real effectively, and it has to do with face-to-face and voice-to-voice. And so if it's sending out the same email, sending out the same mailing, sending out the same, well, then what we do is we make sure that at regular intervals we're following up with these people. And in a phone conversation, I'm not calling and saying, "Hey Corey, it's Craig. Did you get my mailer? What'd you think? You ready to sell?" It's not that's not going to accomplish the long-term goal. It's "Hey Corey, how you doing?" "I'm doing good. How are the girls?" We have a friendship. It doesn't have to take a long time, and I've got a relationship with everybody in my database. Some of it goes back a lot further and a lot deeper. Some of them are just referrals from referrals, and I can still call and say, "Hey, it's Craig Peterson with Aviara. How you doing today?" "Oh, good. Hey, we haven't talked in a while. Did you fill in the blank?"
Right.
And so I think part of it is you start off with a personal note of some sort. And by note, I mean talking.
Sure.
And then you get better as time goes on, weaving things into that. You use the mailer or the email or something as a reason to call sometimes. I mean, you pick a mailer, it's about we were just talking, is this a bubble that's going to burst? So, "Hey, did you have a chance to take a look at that?" "Yeah, I was wondering that. Did it explain it? Is there anything I could explain to you? Are you wondering about that?" You just got to feel it out and see how it flows. But then sometimes it's even video. So sometimes it's you do a pop by and somebody's not home. So I always leave a video. And so again, it's face to face and voice to voice. And I always make it personal. It's not about, "Hey, I'm dropping off this specific gift so you can do something specific," because the real purpose of it is to say, "I thought about you today.
Right.
Hey, I took a minute to come to your house. Sorry I missed you. I'm leaving a little something for you. Let's touch base soon." And more often than not, you get an immediate response to that, and it ends up in a phone conversation. And then you just got to do what you do and be real. I would say one of the things is just be yourself. If you're trying to be something you're not, people are going to see right through it. But if you're just genuinely being you, people are going to appreciate that.
Right.
And in every conversation, every opportunity we have, it's kind of that Brian Buffini thing. "Oh, by the way, who do you know?" And I've been talking to my team about this. Sometimes it's the wording we use. It's not saying, "Do you know somebody who's looking to buy or sell?"
Right.
They can answer that and say yes or no. But it's, "Who do you know who might be looking to buy or sell?" And it causes them to think. And some of them say, "Oh, you know what? Bob, let me get you in touch with him." Some might say, "I don't know. Hey, give me a call."
Right.
It's all it takes. "I'll talk to you soon." Fantastic. Follow up with a note and you're good.
So it sounds like you have a combination of kind of one-to-many strategies, but you try and follow all those up with a one-to-one so that they know that there's something personal, whether it's the message or the phone call, or trying to have an actual one-to-one type of relationship. What was I just going to say? I had a follow-up to that. Do you, in some of what you said, you do kind of have a business undertone to the conversation where it's following up on it. Are you pretty overt about that? That like, "Hey, listen," or do you separate, do you separate conversations between Craig the friend and Craig the realtor, or do you kind of always blend those together?
Not always. No. I mean, if people are friends, there's tons of conversations we have. And I find that with the people who I really have a friendship with, unless there's a specific purpose, I don't need to bring it up.
Sure.
Every once in a while, I'll make sure that I'm asking, "Hey, who do you know?" I don't know. Whatever the response is. But with people, there's some times where the purpose of the call isn't to ask about real estate. Maybe something happened that you heard of, and I'm just going to give a call and care for somebody.
Sure.
Even in some of those, there's a gentleman who's a referral from somebody I listed and sold the house across the street from them. And he said, when we sell, you're my guy. Well, we were talking, and he was kind of getting close to maybe wanting to list, and he had a stroke. And so my conversations with he and his wife since then have had nothing to do with the real estate.
Sure.
It's just, "Hey, how's he doing? How are you doing? What can I do to help you?" And I'm not calling them every day and hounding them, and social media is good for that. You see a post they put up and you like it, or you just, "Hey, hope you guys are doing well, praying for you." And at the right time, it'll come up.
Right.
So sometimes they know I'm there. They know what I do. We've had all those conversations, but something changed. So we've got to be able to feel the situation, understand circumstances, and be able to shift our conversation, because I look at real estate as being able to still care for people just like I did when I was at the church, but I'm able to care for them in a different way. I can still care for them individually through conversations, sometimes through prayer, through other things. But then when they have a need or a friend has a need, I now have this specific skill set that I'm really good at and that I can use to benefit these people. And so that what used to be a roadblock for me, because I didn't want people who I had served in the past to feel like I was just trying to sell them on something. I've gotten past that with all the things we've talked about. So now I look at it and say, I'm excited to make these phone calls. I haven't talked to them in a long time. Used to be that was, oh gosh, I haven't talked to them. They're just going to think I'm selling them something. And when I get over that hump, it now changes to an excitement. It's like, oh man, I had forgotten about them. I need to give them a call.
You would be doing them a disservice to
Exactly.
not give them the opportunity. So if they ended up working with another realtor,
That's right.
because you weren't there and you didn't have the right ability to actually bridge that gap between friend
Exactly.
and business, that you were actually doing them a disservice by not doing that.
Perfect way to say it. And we have to believe in ourselves enough that we believe that we believe if they go with someone else, they are going to get less than if they went with me.
Right.
Now, are there other good realtors out there? Absolutely. Are they better than I am? I don't think so.
Right.
There's people that have machines going. I'm doing a deal right now with a guy who does all kinds of stuff, and I'm kind of watching how he operates. And it's all about him. It's all his name, but he's got all these people running around doing stuff for him. And I'm thinking, man, I don't think I'd want to do it that way.
Right.
I mean, it's nothing wrong with that.
But I think it's important to understand that you're connected with your social sphere because that is because you guys work well together on a social and a personal level, and that can very easily carry into business since it is such an extension of who you are as a person. One thing that I know that you wanted to kind of touch on also, coming on, and we've danced around it, but I want to kind of hear where we are now, is that you coming into the business didn't get quite the right training that you had wanted.
Right.
And I think that probably created a little bit of a slower start.
It did.
You now have focused a lot of your energy not only into selling real estate, but also building a team and being a mentor and somebody who can actually help people get into the business and advance their careers. What are you doing now? What did that teach you, having the lack of training early on, and what are you doing now to kind of fix that problem for the people around you?
Yeah, thanks for that. So what I've learned over many years of doing different things is that those circumstances, those experiences that we would say are negative experiences, are only negative depending on what we do with them. It is not the way I wanted to start out. It did delay me really getting a start that I wanted to get. But what it's done for me is it's given me a motivation with the newer agents on my team and even other agents who called and everything. I don't want anybody else to experience that. I want them to get the training that they need, have the support that they need, so that they can get the traction they're going to get as soon as possible. Because I know that most new agents will either succeed or fail within the first 2 years. And the way I want people to succeed, I want the agents on my team to be as successful as they absolutely can. And I think the way to do that is to ensure that they get the information, get the training that they need, and that they get the traction that they need as soon as possible, because that will build confidence, and momentum is huge. And if you build that momentum early on, then you don't run into what I did, where I was calling my older brother, who I confide in with a lot of things, saying, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't, I know I can do this, but he's like, no, this is your business. Go find what he good advice. But I don't want people to be stuck at that crossroads. Now it's different if they get the training and they're told this is what you need to do to make this work, and they don't do the work. We all have to do the work. Nobody can do that for us.
Right.
But for people who are willing to do the work, the right hires, the right people, I want them to get that traction as soon as possible, because it's a miserable place to be where you're kind of lost. You wake up in the morning, you're your own boss, nobody's giving you any direction. You're being bombarded by 17 different people that just for $500 I'll show you how to do FISBOs or whatever. And so it's given me a better focus on training. And because my motivation is I don't want anybody else to have to go through what I went through.
Right. You want to give them a little bit of a head start. Do you have a goal or do you have like with your database, do you have a certain number of people that you would consider like your A clients or your potential opportunities? And do you have a goal of how many times you want to touch or see or talk to those people over the course of a year?
That's a great point, because a lot of people will make the mistake of just calling through the database over and over again. And the reality is we need to focus on our A pluses, our A's, and then trickle into our B's. So yes, I don't want any of those A's, A pluses. I want to touch them somehow every month, but if not every month, every quarter. And so every A
with a one-to-one, with a phone call or a
somehow
video or something that's one-to-one though, not
exactly.
one-to-many.
So if I'm coming to the end of a month and I'm looking and I've got some A pluses, A's, maybe even the B pluses for whatever reason, I'll shoot them a call or I'll send them a quick video by text and just say, hey, just whatever, thinking about you today. It's amazing how far that goes. I was thinking about you today.
Right.
That can change somebody's entire week. You don't know when you caught them. They may have just had the week where it seems like everybody's just dumping on them and nobody cares. Right. And for somebody out of the blue just to say, hey, I was just thinking about you today. We have no idea how much that means to people.
Well, it is so in line with your personality too. You're obviously somebody who cares very much about people. That's the pastor in you and the mentor in you, and so I think having you check in that way, and for each person figuring out what their thing is. Maybe they find an article that makes them think of somebody and they send them an article.
Exactly.
That would be
That's
more
right.
For me. If a lot of people would be like, just thinking about you, Corey. That's a little bit weird, man, because that's not who I am, right? But if I can go out and the way that I can think about them is to go find an article or a resource or a network
that's
or
huge.
a connection, and that's how I do a lot of my kind of check-ins. And so I think it's to kind of take this overall blueprint and then make it your own is something
that's the key. It's got to be, you've got to operate as Corey would operate. I've got to operate as Craig would. And I do that sometimes, but there are times where sometimes I'm driving and I'll just be thinking and saying, oh, you know what, I haven't talked to so-and-so, and I'll just make a call while I'm driving. And sometimes they pick up, sometimes they don't, but I'm leaving a voicemail saying, hey, I was just driving and thinking about you. Let's connect sometime soon. I'd love to catch up with you.
Right.
That's it.
Well, and I think that's, and we touched on it a little bit, but it has to be authentic if you really want to cross that bridge between taking your family and friends and figuring out a way that you can help them, and in the same process create your own living and your own career. That it's got to be an authentic part of who you are. Because if Craig the Realtor is an entirely different person than Craig the Social,
Absolutely.
then they know exactly when you're calling for real estate and when you're, and it just becomes a little bit more uncomfortable, I would think. Right?
It does. Well, and because trust is really the key.
Right.
The reason people will use us and refer us is because they trust us. If we're trying to be somebody we're not, they're going to see through that and they're not going to trust us. If we're being genuine, they're either going to like that or they're not. And if they don't, then they're probably not going to be a client of ours anyway.
Right.
And then we move on to the people who do like that. But we have to be genuine, because people see through it if you're not genuine.
Right. All right. So here I took some notes kind of along the way. The mindset seems like it was kind of your first real breakthrough, which was understanding not only that you deserve to be paid and getting rid of the poverty mindset, but then surrounding yourself with a team that you could confidently go out there and know that you were providing a service, that these are people that you care about, you want them to be taken care of, that you truly had the ability and the talent and the resources and team around you to actually take care of those people in the way that you would want them to be taken care of. This idea of kind of taking a story brand to where you see yourself no longer as the hero for them, but as the Sherpa that's allowing them to be the hero of this story, which I think is great. And then talking about how you kind of remove the remove it seeming like a mechanical friendship, and that's really only business based, and it's a lot of face to face, voice to voice, as you called it, and anything that you're doing one to many. Follow that up with some sort of one-to-one, so they know that this isn't just a transaction to you. That you're somebody that they are somebody that you actually care about, in building a relationship. Is there anything else that you want to close on? I think this is an incredible topic, and I think something that so many agents, particularly early on, struggle with. And I think eventually most find, when they get past that 2-year mark, and that this is for them, they find that confidence to say, hey, listen, I'm worth this, and I deserve this, and I'd be doing my friends and family a disservice if I let them use anybody else as a realtor.
Right.
But in those first 2 years, it can be a really, really challenging kind of, like you said, a lot of it being mindset and some of it being actual.
So even new agents, what I would say to them is make sure when you're jumping in, make sure that somebody isn't just giving you lip service and say, oh yeah, we do training. Ask questions.
Sure.
There's all kinds of places out there to be. You got to make sure it's a fit for you. That goes for a team as well. I mean, as going on a team, we have to ask certain questions to make sure we're bringing the right people on, and those people should be asking questions to make sure that's a right fit. And part of it is to ask people, so tell me exactly what the training is going to look like. And don't be afraid to ask questions and probe and get specific, because the reality is that's what's going to make or break you as an agent, especially if you're brand new.
I think that's really, really good advice, and it's funny because every team is so different in terms of what they support, and some team leaders are building a team where they are a single source of truth and resource, and some are just building. They're taking leads and just fishing out leads, but there's no real training taking place. I mean, there's so many different types of teams out there, agent-centric, team-centric, and to find the right team that matches with you, with the training that you're going to want, and the personalities on that team as well, I think is something that probably doesn't get enough thought early on, right?
It does. That's right.
And you decide you want to go into real estate, and kind of the first team that'll hire you, you'll jump on sometimes.
That's right.
But that may be an irresponsible move, and taking a little bit more time, understanding that getting the right fit is really going to put you on it's going to alleviate some of the aches that you had to go through early on.
It is, and it's really important, because there's no one way of doing this that is right for everybody. So you really got to seek out the fit.
Right.
And that means that there's going to be agents I interview to come on my team that it's not going to be a fit. And the worst thing I could do is pretend it's going to be a fit when I know it's not going to be.
Right.
For me and for them. So and then you have to be able to be somewhere, unless maybe you've been in sales and it's not a problem, and you're not going to hit this hump. But I think there's a large number of people that start in real estate that are going to be able to identify with what we're talking about. And the battle has to be won here. And once you win the battle of the mind, then it's easy to move forward and get that traction.
Right. Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much. This is really cool to chat and spend some time. I know we've been wanting to have this conversation for a while.
For far too long.
Yeah. So thanks for coming down.
You bet. Good to
right.
be with you, Corey.